Hello, everyone. It is me, Dennis, but without funny glasses, so maybe comedy is only at 99.9%. Today, I would like to issue a welcome to all who have come to Most Deafest Comedy Jam Part 2 here in my luxurious studio. Look how gigantic it is. There's things like a bathroom and light. As you can see, this is a massive stage for all comedians to do their comedy on. First, I would like to welcome first comedian with hat. Thank you for coming. Hello, I am comedian with hat. Thank you for inviting me to Deafest Comedy Jam Part 2. My first question is to Dennis. Are you ready to be roasted? Let me ask you a question. Why called Deaf Noodles? What does deaf mean? Does it mean don't ever funny? Because Dennis, you don't ever funny. Thank you. Ah, that is a very punishing joke. But let me ask you this, comedian with hat. I see you are sweating. Is it because you are at roast? Or is it because my place has no air condition? I thought it would be funny if you come to roast and no air condition is there, and you is very sweat much. Funny? Thank you. Ah ha ha, that is good. I am sweating. And yes, this is very much roast due to acclimation to temperature. But Dennis, I have new question for you. Why wear glasses? Do you wear glasses to look like my cousin? Because you look like my cousin if he were boy wearing glasses. Also, do you wear glasses because one looks smart? Because still, maybe one looks smart, but very dumb. Thank you. Ouch. The burn is very severe. Perhaps I should go to hospital for third-degree burns due to this roast. Greatest roast ever. Maybe now you win many money and also new ticket to new show. I will be in Las Vargas, a country you've never heard of before, doing new comedy. New comedy show. I promise, not lie. Please show up and buy ticket. I have been Dennis, and thank you for coming to Deafest Comedy Jam Part 2. Most second funniest thing ever on earth.
Hey guys, what is up? Inksmith back again, and I'm really happy to hear people are enjoying me putting the drawings in the background of the video. That's very, very flattering. So I'll continue to do that. That's one out better than all three different types of things I've tried, where I've tried putting other footage in the background, I've tried putting my face in the background, and drawing is what's sticking. So I'm going back to that. That's how I started the channel, and that seems to sell the video the most. And I got to do what I got to do to sell the video. You know how it is. And let's talk about Death Noodles today. Oh my God. I really did not think we were going to come back to this subject, but Death Noodles has a way of amazing you through sheer audacity alone. It's kind of top tier cringe addiction when it comes to Dennis. And he's put out another Def Comedy Jam. I call them Def Comedy Jams. I know that's not what he calls it, but I remember that from the 1990s or something. It used to be called the Def Comedy Jam, and I always think why didn't he call it Def Comedy Jam? That would have been the perfect thing, Def Noodles Comedy Jam, and it went worse than the last one, which I didn't think would be possible. But Dennis has a way, like I said, of surprising you every time. So Salvo Pancakes, another commentator, creator, who he makes pretty decent stuff. I don't agree with all of his takes, but I agree with the way that he wants to call people out for doing what they're asking for, and that's kind of what Def Noodles was asking for, was show up or shut up, I think it was. And that's what Salvo Pancakes did. He showed up to Dennis's invitation to do the roast battle. He was not let into the club by security, but eventually he had to wait in line with the other people to watch the show to come in. I guess Def was trying to go through a first level of security to ban him from coming in, because I'm sure he probably already knew Salvo was going to kind of work up the audience, and he was coming in with a big crew of his own, which, I mean, honestly, if I were to host something and an enemy brought their friends, I would invite them all in with open arms just because it would look better for whatever I was hosting. Now, I would realize the pressure would build because I would have to entertain not only my own fans, but those who were clearly against me from the start. But I think that would be a great challenge as a comedian. Not that I'm a comedian. I'm not a comedian. I think you can probably tell that by my opening skit. But that's Def Noodles, what he says he is. He says he's a comedian. And now I'm starting to really notice the trend that's getting Dennis into the biggest amount of trouble is Dennis is a pathological liar. And this is always kind of a scary thing to deal with because you never know how far a pathological liar will go. Sometimes they will make lies that you're like, why do you think anybody would ever believe this? And for them, until every single rug is pulled out beneath them and everything breaks down and total failure is accomplished, they usually won't admit even the slightest thing. And that's kind of what point Dennis is reaching, where he's losing subscribers, he's losing fans. I read the comments under his newest roast, and it's literally all haters. And he refuses to back down and is now even adding another lawsuit on top of the Keemstar lawsuit, which is completely ridiculous. I think you will continue to see this man spiral because he's mounting too much pressure on himself. And I would feel sorry for him if he was getting hit by many detractors just who didn't agree with him. But he's getting hit by all the problems that he's creating himself. He started the lawsuit with Keemstar himself. Now he's going to start a lawsuit with a former employee, which I'll talk about a little bit later in the video. And, he's trying to make waves, make survival money in LA, which cannot be easy when you're not really hosting a lot of talent. And he's not making as much money from the channel because he's losing subscribers and views pretty tremendously. So he's got all those mounting pressures against him. And I think there would be, he's still at a point where he could recover, where he could literally, pull the needle off the record and say, guys, I'm going through a bad spell. Like, I'm lashing out at everyone. I'm suing everyone. And I'm disrespecting my fans. And that needs to stop. And it needs to stop with me. And I need to get real. But this is not the path of a pathological liar. Like I said, that will only be revealed when everything falls apart for Dennis. Now, I'm not rooting for everything to fall apart for Dennis because I think one of the other things that's in the taking is his sanity. And, I think we're slowly seeing that being taken from him, slowly slip away. And I think one of the worst parts of all this is that a lot of the people he surrounds himself, his employees and stuff, like I said, they're riding the coattails of Dennis and just yes-manning everything he says. Which, part of me understands in the sense that you don't want to see the company you work for fail because you want to continue to get a paycheck and survive. So I think I would definitely not try to lower morale at a workplace to lose money. I would try to boost it, but there's a fine line between boosting morale and lying through your teeth to keep your boss motivated to continue to destroy their career. I mean, this is a kind of really silly thing for the other employees to do, to like egg Dennis on, yeah, you're right, that's true. Like, it's not helping his situation. Okay, so the other big issue going on is that when Salvo did show up to Def Noodles stand-up, Def Comedy Jam, whatever it's called, he got ferociously pushed off stage. Now, if you've watched the video, it's not something I'm going to put on here because I don't want this video taken down later for copyright strike or whatever. Or maybe even YouTube would say it's not appropriate for younger audience because somebody got pushed. I have two feelings on this, and not all of them are against Deaf Noodles. I understand he would get upset for people heckling him on stage. I think there's a lot of comedians who deal with that. But I think what professional comedians do is they approach the stage knowing heckling is a possibility of the job. It's like when you work in customer service, you're going to get some bad reviews. You're going to get some angry customers who yell at you. You're going to have irrational people who completely scream at you over the phone if you're doing like telemarketing or even helping in a store sometimes. There's crazy people out there. You're exposing yourself to a public audience as a comedian, so that should be an expected issue. I'm unsure why he's so surprised that when you issue a command, show up or shut up, that the person who shows up doesn't want to shut up because they took you up on your first offer, you know. So Salvo goes up there, he starts chanting red bar, Dennis sucks, or actually worse than that, not Dennis sucks, I'm paraphrasing because if I say it here, my video is going to get demonetized. Less to say, he's talking trash on Dennis, which, you know, it is a roast battle. I mean, that's kind of invited. And he's doing that for a while, getting the audience riled up. And Dennis pops out on stage and pushes Salvo off. Now, afterwards, Salvo started posting all this stuff that he was like in the hospital getting looked at, that he aggravated an old hockey injury Salvo had, that like his spine is out of alignment and his shoulder is dislocated. I don't know if this is just comedy stuff that Salvo... I looked at that push again and again, and I don't think that's like enough to like nearly decapitate you, Salvo. Like, you know, like maybe he's doing it to build a case against Dennis because apparently he said he is pressing charges about assault. Yeah, I mean, God, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's really going to go through. I don't know if he's really going to follow through with an assault. Like, it's more than just saying, I'm going to press an assault on you. And then the police call you up and say, sir, we've already pressed the charges. You know, there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of reporting that goes into that. He does have video evidence. It could be considered assault. It's definitely very uncalled for. You know, violence against comedians on stage is just poor audience interaction and, you know, criminal audience interaction. When I see it, when I watch some comedians who do stand-up comedy and like people literally come up on stage and start attacking them, it's like, what, are you like serious? Like you realize like this person's putting them out there knowing like they're kind of getting you worked up or maybe saying offensive things to be funny, and like you either got to leave the show or root them on. There's only, you know, there's the third option of walking up on stage and pushing someone, slapping someone, punching someone is not an option because it leads to what's happening to Deaf Noodles now, assault charges. You know, be civilized, be rational. You know, they were serving drinks at this, but apparently almost nobody was buying drinks because the bartender only took cash. So it's not like, you know, Def was blasted out of his mind and attacking somebody on stage. There's no excuse for inebriation. I don't know why he thought this was appropriate. It also seems to be very cowardly in the sense that after he pushes him, he gets behind a couple security people and like backs off right away. People hold back Salvo. I wanted to see it go down. If they're going to go fisticuffs, go pugilistic fisticuffs. Let's see it go down. I mean, let's end this thing between both of them. But no, instead, it ended up with, you know, Salvo eventually getting to go up on stage. But sorry, but even Salvo wasn't really that funny. No offense to Salvo, but, you know, I think both of them didn't come prepared to make any zingers. If I had known that I was going up against a so-and-so YouTuber, I would definitely research the hell out of it, write a bunch of stuff down, read it back to myself in the mirror, and, you know, test it with my friends, and then maybe even try an audience that didn't even know me and see how it went, and then show up and be like ready with all this ammo. But I guess he just showed up to heckle, which I get it. You know, it was show up or shut up, put up or shut up, you know, and that's what Salvo did. So he followed through. Props to him. I would have never done that. But I felt like, man, this was a real opportunity to really throw some zingers at Dennis. Like, you could have really bombarded him with some really, like, rough roasts. Like, why does nobody do this? It's a roast, and it seems like nobody researches how to roast. Yeah. Do you think like comedians who show up to actual real roasts just show up and say like, well, I'll try to just make some stuff up on the spot? No, of course not. Like usually they know the people, they know what's worked before in the past in their comedy routines. They probably run it past their friends, their managers. I'm not saying these people have a professional team behind them to tell them what's good or what's not, or writers or anything like that, but why not at least create some material for what you're doing on stage? I mean, that's what comedians do. They create material to push on stage as far as their act. But no, that's the weirdest thing. It's like somebody opened a restaurant to sell hot dogs, but nobody makes hot dogs and nobody stands at the cash register, and they just kind of wonder why nothing works. It's a nobody's doing the job of these things that they're creating. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, it's all back on Dennis, okay? Like, I'm not blaming Salvo for this, but it's all back on Dennis. So, speaking of Dennis, it just appears like he's just getting out of hand with the lies, too. The pathological liar aspect of him is getting way out of hand. I was informed by my viewers. Thank you to the viewers who told me, they're like, the weirdest thing is that he lies about his age. And I said, what? Isn't he 26? And they're like, no, he's almost 40 years old. Bro, you're almost 40? And you're still acting like this? This is like literally me at 26. This is me when I was your age at 26, being like kind of unhinged like this. And over time, I corrected these things and realized I couldn't be so sensitive if I wanted to do YouTube. And here you are at 40 acting like a 26-year-old. What is going on? Like, I mean, it totally makes sense. I not that surprised when I found out he was 40. First of all, he doesn't really look like a 26-year-old. Number two, a lot of his references were always things like, I was like, wait a second, I know that thing. That's weird because that's from my time. And Dennis isn't my age of 40, is he? No. But yeah, he is actually. Why hide that? Why be... I don't know. I mean, there's YouTubers of all ages. One of my favorite anime game visual novel reviewers is like 89 years old. She's like a lady who reviews like really, really brand new visual novels, and she's 89. I don't watch her channel thinking like, can't believe she's 89. Like, dude, no one cares, dude. Every age does this kind of stuff. And if you're worried about like your image as far as doing drama, well, I mean, isn't like Keemstar 40 as well doing stuff on drama? So like, why hide that? Don't be ashamed. That's so weird to me. So right away he's lying about that. The next thing he's lying about is that he had a upcoming show at a Las Vegas comedy club. And this story kind of goes really down the rabbit hole because according to Dennis, after his Def Comedy Jam 2 roast battle, he was about to head off to Vegas in order to do a comedy show with a comedian who recommended him to the club. And apparently when he was in Vegas, he took photos of him staying at a comped hotel, and people pinned it as a bit weird because he was tagging the photo that it was showing up in LA. So people were already like, well, this is weird. I mean, it looks like you're still in LA, bud. Why are you saying you're in Las Vegas getting ready for your show? Number two, people started to call. And when I say people started to call, I'm not talking about hundreds of clamoring fans waiting for Def to hit the stage. I'm talking about like 2 or 3 YouTubers recorded their call and asked the comedy club that Def mentioned, and they were very confused. I mean, the phone calls are recorded. The managers of the club seem to be like, well, who's this Dennis guy? Who's Def? I've never heard of this guy. Like, what are we talking about here? So then Def reports back that the reason he's no longer doing the show at that club was because so many people called, 300 plus people, that the club felt harassed and kicked him off the stage, or kicked him off the list of people who were going to hit the stage. Now, we're not talking about like nowhere Bumpkinsville. We're talking about Las Vegas. Like 300 people calling a place that's going to have a show in Las Vegas does not seem like overkill. If it's a good, popular club, if it's even a decent medium one, they would probably be really excited whether it was bad or good news. Whether they said, oh, I can't believe that guy's going to be there, I'm going to show up just to heckle him. They'd be like, well, that's more money for us. Go ahead and show up and heckle him. Like if 300 people are calling interested about that, that's the possibility of 300 extra butts and seats buying tickets. I'm not sure why any comedy club would be like, oh my God, all these people called about asking if you were going to be there. So now that they've asked, we want to kick you off the list of people coming up here because we want to make sure we do not get those people showing up. Like that, that just wouldn't happen, man. Like they'll take the money however it comes, whether it be good or bad press. Like the comedian who shows up and bombs, their career's not going to kill the club. So I'm not sure why he thinks they would cancel him. I guess there's no proof that he wasn't part of the roster. That's like official printed paper proof. But I never believe he was part of the roster. There's just no way. So then, according to Dennis, it goes on even further. The lie continues, and this is clear pathological manipulation, where he says, well, so then I was with the same comedian who we don't know who this comedian friend is. It's a mystery. I'm imagining a man who is a literal shadow with a white question mark hovering around his torso area, walking around in a gamified world. I'm not sure what who this comedian is. And he said, don't worry, Dennis, I'm going to get you in at another club. They called a second club, got him on the roster there to show up. And he said, and that club also canceled because 300 more people called that club. But we don't even know what the second club is. So how people called or found out means like it was like rabid fans of Deaf Noodles finding out where his next hotspot was for his Def Comedy Jam 3. Which, I mean, no, Dennis, no, this didn't happen. Like, I'm just going to call it like it is. There was no second club. There was no first club. You didn't have any shows ready, man. Like, this is total BS, and I don't know why you think your audience is going to believe it. Like, I realize your fans are probably way younger than you, but even they are not so dumb as to believe you've got all these comedy lineups. First of all, like, you're not even prepared for your own show, your own roast battle. Why on earth would another place hire you to not be prepared as well? Why would anybody request you as being part of the list? Who is this mysterious comedy friend? Have them come forward and say, like, look, I'm the guy who got him on the list, and I will 100% take back everything I've just said. But this guy's not going to show up. He doesn't exist. He's not a real comedian. There's no real person setting you up with all these gigs because you've never been a comedian. I went back and I looked through all these things where he said, like, I have a writing credit for this. I've written comedic lines for this show. And so none of that seems to be actually true. I don't think there really was any point in Dennis's life where he had a job being a comedian or writing comedy for anyone. I think this was a good way for him to kind of brush off a lot of the criticism he got in the past, where he'd say, like, I was a comedy act, a cat-eared Minecraft YouTuber, and anybody who doesn't believe that is just being a jerk who doesn't like me and doesn't understand comedy. Comedy is subjective, but it's far-reaching to say what you do is comedy because you've never actually been given any credit for said comedy. I mean, there's no real credits that we can pin down as being 100% proof of you being a comedian, Dennis. Like, if that's really what you want to do, if that's really something you want to pursue, fine, go for it. Like, I'm not against anybody's hobbies or occupational pursuits, but actually back it up with evidence. Like, is there any footage of him actually doing like a live comedy show that isn't just open mic night? I mean, any of us can walk into an open mic night and start getting heckled on stage. Finally, the last thing I want to talk about is this controversy with his former employee. I don't remember her name offhand, and quite frankly, I don't really want to get her any kind of harassment from this video if any rabid fans of Def are watching. But a former employee of Def Noodles was talking about how bad her experience was and why she quit, that they went to Burning Man and Dennis couldn't rent a car because his license was expired, which it's just like, you're almost 40 years old and you're walking around with an expired license. Like, what is going on with you, man? Like, you can't, your life sounds like it's really, I always notice if someone's life is really out of disorder, they're going around with a suspended or expired license. Like, if a lot of I'm not saying they're a bad person for this, but I'm just saying, like, if everything is kind of discombobulated in their life and they're just kind of like holding on to the threads of sanity, they've got an expired or suspended license, okay? So now they're having to rent a car under his employee's license and credit card, because you have to give not only a valid driver's license, but a credit card that is under that ID. And so now the insurance, the ID, the vehicle, and the payment for the vehicle is all under his employee, who did not volunteer to do this. She was just kind of put on the spot if they were going to go out to Burning Man and record it. On the way there, they bring no supplies. Of course, he's the one leading the way, and you would think he would come well supplied, Def Noodles that is, with things like, oh, I don't know, water because you're going into the desert. And what really kind of blows my mind, and I feel like both of them should have known this, but they were really surprised that you couldn't go around paying money to get things at Burning Man. And it's like, do you know what Burning Man is about? How it's been around for ages as a bartering system? Like, I've never been to Burning Man. I've never had any wish to go. And even I know that. I don't get it. They had to sleep in the car. And, you know, he came back with a bunch of stuff to say, like, oh, I got receipts that none of this is true and stuff. And it's like, you know, that's great. Like, you can go ahead and say you have all these receipts, none of which he actually shows, and try to refute everything. But on top of it, he wants to go for a lawsuit. He said he's talking to his lawyers about how he can pursue legally what this girl is saying about having worked for him. Now, unless she signed a non-disclosure agreement, I don't know how she's going to be able to be sued for simply talking about her last experience with an employer. Many of us have done this in the past, talking about bad experiences we've had with an employer. And once again, unless you sign an NDA, you're not going to get sued over that. On top of it, he's not being stopped from getting any money because of her talking about what her employment was. You know, like if she was calling around to multiple comedy clubs and breaking gigs for him so that he couldn't work, I think that's a chance for defamation of character or loss of income due to harassment. But that's not the situation here. She's literally telling what her work experience was with you and how unprofessional you were. And the fact that you would go after her for a lawsuit because of this just kind of really speaks to how cowardly you are, how weak you are, how desperate you are to keep this pride. And this pride that you want to keep, Def Noodles, is doing the complete opposite for you. It's not making you look like the hero. It's not making you actually keep face or not lose face or keep actual pride. It's making you look like a worse and worse person. And it's disheartening to see you go through all this work to cover up so many lies. Like, the thing you'll notice the most about someone who's constantly lying all the time is that there might be, for an average person, 1 or 2 times you find out that they got information wrong and that the story was a little bit different from what other people told you, simply because they either forgot facts or it's been a while since so-and-so thing has happened. But a repetitive and pathological liar constantly has issues with every aspect of their life. They have these things like fights with old employees, fights with friends who are no longer friends, fights with, I guess, peers within whatever they work in. So, for example, Def Noodles is like, you know, having a lot of fights with fellow peers within the YouTube community. And they have people constantly calling them out and being like, what are you talking about? Like, none of this is adding up. And that's what we're seeing again and again with Def Noodles, even to the point of his age. And it's like, if the guy will stoop far enough to lie about how old he is, to lie about jobs and gigs that he is getting, I don't think there's anything else you can put past him as far as how much he'll go to to lie, to put this much work into lies and a fake life. And I feel like if he had just stayed humble through most of this, if he had just kind of admitted his faults, if he had reeled back on the attacking anyone who disagreed with him, because there's always going to be people that disagree with you. I'm sure I have a ton of videos on here that people are like, I don't think the same thing of this person, or I don't think it's really the fall of their YouTube career. That's fine. That's fine. And over time, you may even find out you were wrong about something that happened because you didn't get all the facts and you have to research again and do follow-ups on it. And in some of the follow-ups I've had to do, I've had to apologize and get facts right. And that's all Def Noodles would have to do, to go back on a lot of the stuff he said and say, I got this wrong, guys. I shouldn't have attacked this person for this thing. I shouldn't have lied about this thing. I shouldn't have tried to deceive you with what my actual past work history was. I shouldn't try to attack people who don't disagree with me. I should have never launched these lawsuits simply because people are saying about me the same things I am saying about them. At any point, he could retract all this, and I think, honestly, he's got a good enough fan base that they would be okay with that. And his comments in his videos would switch from this very deterrent and constant, I guess, I don't want to call it harassment, because I think it's more just people's personal opinion, which they're totally allowed to have. It's just, right now, everybody's opinion is bad. If you go into the comments on his videos, it's all bad things. It's no one's on his side on this. And it's just like, when your career is in that much of a downfall, when you're losing thousands upon thousands of subscribers each week, and your fans are literally calling you out, even having live interviews with them on Twitter or whatever he did, the Twitter group that he did, where he had people come in and they all just kind of like, I'm disappointed in you. Like, I thought you were better than this. I'm not sure why you're pursuing this. It's time to really take a look at you. When this many outside sources are coming to you and saying like, dude, what you're doing is wrong. What you're trying to push here as a story is found to be not true. Your constant deceiving of your fans and your viewers and other YouTubers is just not a good look. Stop. Then maybe it is time to just stop and take a look inside. But like I said, it all goes back to the beginning of the video where I said, the only time I see pathological liars come to a complete and utter stop is when everything is pulled out from underneath them. Until he has lost any kind of following on YouTube, until he has had to move back to whatever state he came from, or maybe even have to go move back in with his parents, until he's had every bit of income from YouTube dried up, until every single contact that he's had on YouTube and peer is gone, he's not going to stop. And I don't know how that's going to play out for the future. I've seen times where this kind of stuff blows over and eventually they get back on the right path where they're not so deep into the drama that it ruins their career. So there's still a chance for that. I've seen where people come back and they apologize because they realize they got out of hand or too deep into whatever emotional connection they had to this YouTube stuff. And I've seen people just absolutely obliterate their career to the point where they're never heard from on YouTube again, or if they do even try to come back, it just doesn't work. And honestly, the way Def Noodles is going right now, he's going down the third path I mentioned of becoming irrelevant. And I think there is still a chance for him to stop it. And I don't think he's going to listen to any of these videos. I don't think he's going to watch mine or watch anybody else's and say, you're right, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I gotta roll all this back. I don't think that's ever going to happen. And that's why we're going to see him go down the third path of continually destroying his own fan base and channel. Which, it's sad, man. It's sad because at the end of the day, I mean, he's not doing anything super horrific. He's not in a total abusive asshole to his community. He's not, doing some of the horrible things I've mentioned in the past, but he is going to end up as the fall of whatever YouTuber type video that I make in the future because of how he refuses to self-correct. And, at early 20s, I could see it. Teenage years, I could see it. I could be like, well, I understand where they're coming from. You haven't had enough life experience to realize when you're really screwing up sometimes at that age. Some people are far more mature and do realize that and make self-correction. But at 40, I can look back at the past and see where I've absolutely screwed up on YouTube and made self-correction. And I'm just really surprised he can't do that too here on YouTube. It's really wild to see. Anyway, guys, that's my 2 cents on it. I hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, please leave a like. Subscribe if you're new. That would be great. I'm having a lot of fun going back to drawing with these, and I'm enjoying always talking to you guys and hearing your feedback on these videos. I'm actually really surprised on some of the views I'm getting on these past videos. It's been great. Anytime I get over 1,000, I'm super stoked. So thank you again. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the discussions. And until next time, I hope you have a great rest of the day.